So a Parkland father has some words for Bernie Sanders here. So let's go through this. Parkland dad to Bernie Sanders over past gun views. Your votes and what you've done are still there. All right. So this is a Parkland father who is pursuing tougher gun policy, which is awesome. I don't blame the father at all. I think that's awesome that he's doing that. And my heart goes out to that father for his loss. That's terrible. And he is not convinced on Bernie Sanders. So let's see what he has to say. And of course, CNN would want to highlight something like this because it's anti-Bernie. So, if you're anti-Bernie, that's CNN loves you. All right. So Fred Gutenberg doesn't have a candidate in the 2020 Democratic primary race. He has a cause, and her name is Jamie. So Jamie was one of the victims in the Parkland school shooting. So since that day, his mission has been to push for stricter gun and ammunition laws. And he's not afraid to call anyone who gets in the way, even if that happens to be Bernie Sanders. So Bernie says, all over the world, people are looking at the United States and wondering what is going on. What is the mental health situation in America, where time after time after time we're seeing indescribable horrors? So Gutenberg believes connecting mental health to gun violence is an NRA talking point. It is. Yeah, in many ways it is. I don't think that was what Bernie Sanders was doing here, though. Let's read the quote again. All over the world, people are looking at the United States and wondering what is going on, what is the mental health situation in America, where time after time after time we're seeing indescribable horrors. So here's what Gutenberg wrote. Shame on you, Senator Sanders, for these comments. This is a gun issue. To use the gun lobbying talking points only discredits you as a presidential option this following weekend. So I do agree, and here's what else Gutenberg has to say. I do agree we as a country need to deal with a broken mental health system. But when we have gun violence, we need to be really specific. All right. So here's a couple things that Sanders, one of the most progressive voices in Washington, has long been criticized for his votes on two pieces of gun legislation. In the early 90s, Sanders, representing Vermont in the House, sided with the gun lobby and voted against the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act, known as the Brady Bill. It became law in 1994, included tougher background check provisions and a waiting period for gun purchases. More than a decade later, he voted to protect gun manufacturers from being sued by victims of gun violence. All right, so, and we've talked about all these before. First of all, Bernie has a D- rating with the NRA, probably pushing towards an F. For the gun manufacturers, he lives in a state where there is a lot of independent gun store owners and stuff like that. He didn't want to see them be responsible. Was it the right judgment call? Probably not. Probably not. Bernie's gotten stuff wrong before. He'll get stuff wrong in the future. Bernie's not perfect. Neither is anybody else. As far as actual gun policy in this country, which again, and I've said this before, some of you disagree with me on this, and I really respect your optimism, and I wish I shared it. I do not believe I will ever see any gun policy in my lifetime. Not in this country. Not in this country. The NRA, even though people say they're waning in power, I really don't see it. They have Congress by the gullet. They still have immense power. And I just don't see any common sense gun policy happening in my lifetime. I just don't. I hope I'm wrong. I so want to be wrong. But if I'm being honest with you, I don't see it happening. I wish it would. I'll do everything that I can do as an individual to try to make it happen. I'll support anybody going on that cause. Now, what I would say to this Parkland dad is like, look, yeah, Bernie Sanders isn't perfect, but as far as realistic gun policy in this country and who your options are in the White House, who do you think you're better off with than him? Who do you think you're better off with? I don't think any. I mean, you think Kamala Harris, the person who's a cop and giggles at throwing people in jail, you think she'd do anything about gun policy? Joe Biden, the guy who sounds like a Republican whenever he talks? Pete Buttigieg, the guy who wouldn't even fire a corrupt police chief over racism in law enforcement? Think that guy will do something about gun policy? The guy who has no policy ideas whatsoever and won't even talk about it. When he's asked about it, he says, let's not focus on policy. Let's focus on my likable personality. Beto O'Rourke, who stands for absolutely nothing at all, who backpedals on everything, who takes a bunch of money from oil and gas and is in the state of Texas. You think that guy? Think the NRA ain't powerful in Texas? Cory Booker, who will stab a pharmaceutical bill that could have gotten us cheaper prescription drugs, stab that in the back with a smile on his face. Then all of a sudden, right after he did Big Pharma's bidding, stopped taking their money. Randomly, he said he stopped taking their money so that it looked better. The only time you ever hear from Cory Booker is when he has a crocodile tear moment or a moment to call out Trump for something outrageous Trump says and give himself a juicy soundbite. Even in every debate, he never talked about anything specific. He just said, "Hey, Trump's bad." He might as well have just worn a T-shirt that said, "Trump's bad, please applaud," and said nothing. Cory Booker would have had the same effect in every debate he's been in thus far. Who do you think you're better off? And then a Republican, forget it. They're owned by the NRA. So, I salute this Parkland. I salute this Parkland dad. What was his full name again? Guttenberg. What was his first name? Fred Guttenberg. I salute him for what he's doing. And my heart goes out to him for his loss. But, if you're going to call out Bernie Sanders, you should really call out everybody else too. And, in this article, it says he's undecided in this race. I don't know who you're going to be better off with than Bernie Sanders if you want realistic gun policy in this country, as far as president goes. I don't know who you're better off with. Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard are pretty much the only options if you ever want some realistic gun policy in this country or a chance at it. And again, I don't think it's going to happen. And I hope I'm wrong. I really hope. And I will make a video when that day comes. And I'll be like, guys, I have never been more happy to be wrong. I was so wrong on that one. We have a common sense gun policy in this country where we have restrictions on how much ammo people can buy, where certain guns have to be kept at a range, where you have to register your gun like you do a car, where you have to have an extensive background check, where you have to pass a gun safety class, where you have to have reference letters. These are all things other countries do, by the way. We could do all of these things, where we had an extensive buyback program, where you have to register and give a reason when you want a gun. These are all things we can do. And if you're a gun owner that has followed all the rules thus far, if you're a gun owner who is responsible, who would never think about committing a heinous act, you just use it for hunting, is this inconveniencing you a little bit? Yeah, it most certainly is. Yeah, it totally is. But isn't it also better to live in a society that doesn't have the mass shootings that we have? Wouldn't that be awesome? And by the way, when is that logic ever applied anywhere else? Have you ever heard anyone go, why do I have to show up at the DMV again? I'm a good driver. I haven't been in any accidents. Why do I have to show up again and register? Well, because we have to do that to try to have some safety on the road, to try to make sure that vehicles are following emission standards, and to try to make sure that vehicles are registered properly. I mean, maybe that's not the best analogy in the world because the DMV is kind of a racket, but you get the idea. No one ever says, we all hate going to the DMV. It's a big pain in the butt. Nobody likes it. Nobody's like, oh, I get to go to my DMV. But we just accept it as something we have to do. Nobody's like, I'm a good driver. Why do I need to go again? You just accept it. So why can't we have more common sense gun laws in this country? And if you are a responsible gun owner, you just got to accept that. You just got to accept, look, I've never caused any harm. I'm a hunter or whatever. Yeah, so you're going to be a little more inconvenienced now because we have a gun catastrophe in this country, and that's putting it gently. I don't even know what the right word is for what we have, but it's insane, and no other country has it quite like this. No other country with our amount of wealth, and that's a first world country at our level, has the mass shooting problem that we have. So, and I'm sure CNN ran with this piece. I'm sure that this guy, he didn't like Bernie's quote, which I think, was it the best choice of words? Getting back to the quote here, let me read it again. So the quote that Bernie said, all over the world, people are looking at the United States and wondering what is going on. What is the mental health situation in America, where time after time we're seeing indescribable horrors? Now, was that the best choice of words from Bernie Sanders? Maybe not. I think that's fair. But to really take that quote and to say Bernie's pushing NRA talking points, that's a huge overamplification of what he actually said. That's a huge kind of, I would say, misinterpretation and overamplification of the point he was making. Was it his most productive aside? No, it wasn't. That's fair. But to then say, oh, he's parroting NRA talking points, that's a bit much. And if you're going to be that scrutinizing about Bernie, you should be that scrutinizing about all the other candidates too, which I hope you are being. And if you are, I don't think we're better off with anyone other than Bernie Sanders. If you want common sense gun policy in this country, I do not think any other candidate will touch it. Oh, Liz Warren, she'll talk about it when the cameras are on. She'll talk about it. She might even wag her finger at the NRA. And then when push comes to shove, she will do nothing. So I guarantee you there's not even anybody on that stage other than Bernie Sanders that has the courage to embrace Medicare for all, the health care plan most Americans want. But they're scared to go against the insurance lobby. You think they'll go against the NRA? You think Hillary Clinton would have went against the NRA? Bernie Sanders isn't perfect. He's made mistakes, and he'll make more in the future, just like any other person who will ever sit in office anywhere. But if you want common sense gun policy, as far as president goes, you don't have a better option than Bernie Sanders. By miles. And this isn't a lesser than two evils statement. He's the only one where you actually have a chance that he'll go up against the NRA. No one else would have the courage to even touch it. So, again, I applaud this guy's efforts. I applaud what he's doing, and my heart goes out to him for his loss. And I hope he examines everything that's going on in 2020, and I hope he really takes a look at these different candidates. And I hope he scrutinizes them with the same lens as he's going to scrutinize Bernie, and look at their past and look at what they're all about.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and